My wig is straight.
Welcome to the Strong for Life podcast. I'm your host, Connor O'Shea, and today I'm joined by Ryan Hurst. Ryan is the co-founder and head coach of GMB Fitness. So Ryan, thanks for jumping on today's show.
Thank you so much, man. It's great. It's kind of weird. We've known each other for so long and being on a podcast together, but I'm really happy you're doing this and excited for where you go with all this with your podcasts and the guests. So again, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of people who would be listening to this will know who you are. But for those who don't, do you want to give a bit of a background about who you are and what you do?
Sure. As Connor said, I'm one of the three people who founded GMB Fitness, and we've been official for 11 years, but the three of us have been together much longer than that. Andy Fawcett, Jarlo Ilano, and myself. And we all come from a martial art background, but also fitness related. We all have very different backgrounds in terms of what we bring to the table. And I think that's, to be honest, what really makes GMB, as well as allows us to continue to grow. And for example, Andy's background in education, Jarlo's background as a physical therapist, my background just basically as a dancing monkey with gymnastics and martial art in the fitness world. We each, again, we play our roles. I'm the head coach in GMB Fitness, where I work on programming in terms of creating programs and making sure that they work. And then also coaching people, working with the trainers, people like our lead trainer here, Connor, and other people. Whereas, again, Andy and Jarlo have different roles in the company, but the three of us do have our backgrounds, which are similar. So it's not just me creating a program and it goes, get input from Andy and Jarlo in terms of what we need, where we want to go. And there's a lot of things that go into creating everything that we do. So we consider ourselves an education company rather than a fitness company. And our main thing is focusing on physical autonomy and helping people to be able to do whatever it is they want to do more efficiently and with ease. So not about really, six-pack abs or getting huge or ripped or anything like that. It's basically us helping you to move better and feel better. All those are gone. They're like, forget this guy. So yeah, that's a little bit there. Yeah.
That's great. So when I think about GMB, what you've achieved so far, the first thing I would say is being early. When I think about everything you've done, like looking at the way things are now with especially gymnastics, strength training, you go online, there's a huge amount of people doing it.
Yes.
And any sort of movement training. So do you want to maybe talk on starting stuff when you're maybe the only people doing it, and how does that feel when you're kind of doing the opposite to everyone else?
Yes. So when we first started off, again, officially GMB 11 years, but a few more years prior to that, we were actually online doing things, Andy, Jarlo, and I together. Wasn't a lot of people, or I should say there weren't a lot of people online at that time in terms of having a business 100% online in the fitness realm, if you will, and especially in the niche market that we were in. And so when we started GMB Fitness, we actually had one product before our first official GMB product. We started off though with our official GMB product, which was called Rings One. Now, there was another group online that was gymnastics related, but the thing is we didn't showcase ourselves as gymnasts. So yes, my background from age 6 to 18, I competed in gymnastics. At the same time, I martial arts, and I continued my martial arts. Andy, Jarlo already mentioned this, but the movements that we were teaching, because it was rings related, immediately there's this pull towards people thinking that it's gymnastics. Mm-hmm. For us, it wasn't really gymnastics. It was about using that simply as a tool to help other people to be able to train in a way that maybe matched what they wanted a little bit better. It's very difficult, to be honest, in the beginning, especially with our wives. Jarlo, coming from his physical therapy background, Andy, again, with him in teaching and his marketing background. Myself, I actually had a gym that I was running at the time here in Japan. And, I remember telling my wife, hey, sweetie, we're going to do this new thing. And it's 100% online. It's going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
She just couldn't just fathom, like, no one is doing this. I haven't heard of anybody doing this. You think this is seriously going to work?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's how it was. Now, we didn't quit our real jobs, if you will. I still had my gym, and he was still doing marketing consulting work. Jarlo was still working in the clinic as a physical therapist.
Mm-hmm.
We continued to do this quite a few years into GMB. So when we started GMB Online, it wasn't a matter of, hey, we're going to quit everything and just go online and do that. As a matter of fact, we didn't really pay ourselves a salary, if you will, until quite a few years later. So us being the first people in was both good and, I guess, difficult in the sense that we had no idea what we were doing. We had an idea that we just wanted to put out some fun, cool stuff. And again, I'm very lucky that I have Andy and Jarlo, because Andy has the brains in terms of the marketing and the vision as far as where we wanted to go. And Jarlo, with his background in being able to look at things the very technical way and explain them in a way that brings along the medical, anatomical background to that. Me simply coming up with these things where, hey, man, I think we should do this program, or let's do this, or, whatever. Me getting in front of the camera, there were just a lot of things that we had no idea how to do. And I mentioned the camera. I was horrible in front of the camera. I had never been in front of a camera like that before. Making YouTube videos is, hi, I'm Ryan from GMB Fitness. It was just painful when I look back at that. But I think, though, that was great in the sense that no one was doing it like we wanted to do it. And so, again, exciting, but also very scary.
Yeah.
But having people that you trust in and putting up with each other's shit or being able to put up with each other's, worries and things like that has been really, really good. And what we've always tried to do in GMB is not just settle on saying, okay, it's only going to be this way. So similar to how we practice martial art, and for my martial artists out there, you'll totally understand this, that you have to adapt to the situation. You can't just remain static and think that one particular thing is going to work when person in front of you on the mat or in real life is doing something that, you didn't expect. So you always have to change and adapt. And so that's what we've really tried to do, is make sure that we're looking ahead and preempting, if you will, saying, okay, if this, therefore this, but okay, this is something that could happen. Are we prepared to be able to start going in that way? And so that's, again, coming back to vision, listening to what our clients say, but the other thing, not just doing what our clients say. And that is also very important, because we've really tried to stick, and we have stuck to our values, and as well do things in a way that we're looking beyond what people just say they want. Because if we were to just do what people say they want, then I don't think that we could be as good as we are right now. And so, like I said to you guys, the trainers and things, give the people what they want, but more importantly, give them what they need. And, a lot of people don't really know what they need. And that's where, that's the difference between being just a teacher and a really good coach, is really understanding what people actually need and try and work on helping them to achieve that in a way that's also giving them what they want. So it comes down to a good user experience And I think that's really kind of what we've focused on over the years, is how can we make the GMB experience better, just a little bit better, each day, each month, year, for the people here in GMB. And this goes for not only, our clients, but also hopefully for our staff, in the way that we work, in the way that we try and make products.
Yeah, you touched on some really good points there. Like with martial arts, if you're not adapting, you're going to get crushed. And
Yeah,
I guess the
yeah,
same with business and your approach
absolutely.
to updating and progressing your user experience as technology improves, as the way people
Yes, yes,
consume content.
absolutely.
Was there any major parts of the journey over the last 10 years that was very difficult for you to adapt to?
For me personally, yes. I'm very used to working in person. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was difficult for me, actually, when we started looking at building our new platform, which is called Praxis. To me, in the beginning, it felt like I was going to lose touch, if you will, with how things are going, when in actuality, it's quite the opposite. This actually allows me to interact with more people. Not that I'm literally there in the room with him, but the way that the platform is set up, again, we can preempt and say, as a person is working through this program, how can I make this user experience, or how can it's actually we make this user experience feel as if I'm there with them? And so that's been lovely. And it's been something that was difficult for me personally, because I didn't quite understand it. And as we continue to update and make these tweaks, updates, different things to Praxis, it's great, because we see that the clients are finally getting to understand where we're wanting to go with this. When we first launched Praxis, it was a bit difficult because people, kind of freaked out a little bit, like, oh, well, why wouldn't you do it this way or something, and this is the cool thing, is that, Andy especially is always not just thinking about right now, but okay, where's tech going to be in the next 5 years? And how can we work towards creating something that's not just going to be all of a sudden this huge jump into something else, but slowly helping a person to be able to get there. And that's kind of our method, to be honest, is with everything that we do, is do it slowly and just focus on being aware. And so that awareness into what we're actually doing, in the way that we're moving towards whatever new thing is still there, I think. And in terms of me finding difficulty, I've really, over the years, become more comfortable in not being 100% comfortable, if that makes sense, and not really knowing what's going on. And it's very similar to my martial art. And when it doesn't matter if you're in karate or judo or jujitsu or whatever you're doing, you don't know what the other guy's going to do. You can just only try and be prepared and go with it, and understand that it's going to be uncomfortable. But as long as you have that base, and as long as you are really, really comfortable in your foundation, then you're going to be able to move forward. And again, coming back to our values, that's what it is for us. There's always going to be changes. Facebook, personally, my personal opinion on Facebook is it's always going to suck. But the thing is it's
It's now
we need to use
Meta
it.
now. It's a new company.
Yeah, Meta now. Pardon me. Yes, now we're Meta, which is a
Yeah.
whole other can of worms, in my opinion. But this is, again, me. I love face to face, in person.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing for me has been me really coming to grips and understanding that we can help more people by being on the internet, and I know that sounds like, total old man speak here, but what I mean is, whatever that might be coming forward in the meta or whatnot, might not be something that I completely agree with in terms of that. But I think that if that is where things are going, how can we participate and give our users a good experience while, sticking to our values as we move forward with that?
Yeah, I always remember a few years ago you said, think outside of your postcode, which I always remember,
That's
just
right.
as a
You've
coach,
got to
if you
think
get,
outside of your postcode. That's exactly
yeah,
right.
It's very hard to think
It's
that way. It's because it's
it's
different
tough.
level, but
Absolutely.
but it's also, yeah, it kind of opens up much more
Right.
prospects and
And
everything.
and that goes for movement as well. And so if you get sucked into thinking one particular movement or style or thing is it, then you become static. And when that happens, then you don't move forward. And that can be both good and bad, of course. But, this is why when I tell, get your foundations down, get that foundation movement down, know it really, really well, then start exploring. And once you can start exploring, that's where our play comes into. And so this is the other thing that you can do in your business is if you really have those foundations down in your business, know exactly what it is you're after, and you're really good at what you're doing, then you can start to explore and play and move outside of that box, if you will, outside of your zip code. And internally, that is also a good thing too. It's not a big jump into something like I mentioned earlier. It's a slow change. And the slower you go, the more awareness you're going to have. And that way you can actually do it in a safe manner rather than it being very, very risky. And if we're talking about business, of course, that obviously makes sense. But if we're talking about movement as well, the risk then would be injury. And so making sure that you're doing something in a way that's good for you at a speed and in a manner that's going to allow you to continue to do it in a safe manner while you're still able to enjoy it, have fun, and then therefore learn. And so those are my three things that I'm always looking at. Is number one, is it safe? Can you do it in a safe manner? If you can do it in a safe manner, that's going to allow you to enjoy the process. If you enjoy the process, then you're going to actually want to do more of it, which means you're going to be, you're going to continue with it and be consistent. Therefore, you're going to learn and you're going to get better. But it doesn't happen the opposite way. You can't just think to learn something just by simply just trying to just jump, head first into a lake and not know that it's shallow and end up breaking your neck. I know it's a horrible image, but yeah, a lot of people do that with business, right? Where they just sort of like, I'm just going to do it. So coming back to the very start of GMB, I think we've been very smart with that, in that we never really jumped completely into a body of water without knowing sort of what was underneath and if it was safe to actually jump in there, without having our little floaties on our arms to make sure that we could actually survive and move forward. Yeah.
So I'd like to talk a bit more about that time when because from what I recall about your in-person business, it was very successful. Like, you had a TV show, you were
It might have seemed that way, and it could have been. Sorry to interrupt. Yes. So for those of you listening who don't know, I live in Japan, and I've been in Japan now almost 28 years. I'm 49 years old. And so way before GMB, I was involved with a different fitness organization where I was actually the program director there. I designed the programs, as well as I was the head coach of that organization as well. That allowed me certain opportunities where I was approached by some people to actually do a television show here in Japan. I do 2 television shows here in Japan. Actually wrote a book here in Japan. It's published in Japanese. It's called The Ryan Method. They actually changed the name because they wanted to just make it that. But had to have a book that was sold, and you can still find it in the bookstores here.
So how old were you when all this was happening?
So let's see. I was 30, maybe 30. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So yeah. And I had a private training studio, which is actually where I met Andy. I actually met Andy and Jarlo through that previous fitness organization. They were also involved with that, but I actually had here in Japan my own private training gym. And then after that, I shut that down in order to open up a different gym that we specialized in teaching children. My kids were very, very young at that time, and I wanted to have, this is very selfish, but I wanted them to have a place to be able to to learn and play, and it's called the Jungle Gym is what it was called, where it was basically focused just on natural movement, and the curriculum from A to Z had animal movements. And so A was alligator, B butterfly, whatnot, and linked all those together. That's where the GMB program elements kind of came from. But a lot of those movements that were in there are actually from my days in Judo, which were warm up. So long story there, but coming back to the whole successful part, to be honest, a lot of learning opportunities happened to me in there. For example, the whole TV thing, I had DVDs and whatnot, but didn't make any money off of it. And that was all because I signed a contract with the people that were doing it. They ended up getting all the money. Same deal with, I started my private gym. I ended up spending a lot of money on advertising, things like that, hired a marketing place, and they basically just took all my money. So yeah. So it was a great opportunity to learn. It was about 30,000 US dollars. And so that was a really good education. What I really learned is that I'm not a business person, to be honest. And it took me a very long time to understand that, to get that. I had to be, because it's always just been me. But when I met up with Andy and then Jarlo and I, we decided to get together and start a company. Things changed, because in that way, it wasn't that I wasn't a part of the business and helping out with that. It was that my task, my purpose, if you will, was a little bit different. And so it allowed me the opportunity to focus more on what I'm good at. Now, we still all had to wear many hats during the beginning of GMB, and we still do. But right now, for example, I don't, really deal with the marketing side of things or advertising. Of course, I'm involved because I shoot the videos for those things, but it's not me actually thinking up sales funnels and all those different things. So the things that I actually had to work on when I had my private training gym, my private studio, where I would have to program, teach, sell, as well as market, and do all of that different stuff. So basically, I was just hustling. To try and, make it work. And there was a lot going on. I was doing a lot of stuff, but I wasn't focused on what I really, or I should say in the way that I could have been focused or should have been focused, to have made that a good business. And I think there's a difference between bringing in a lot of money and actually having a successful business that is sustainable. And that was the thing. I was bringing in a lot of money. It was not sustainable. The amount of hours I was working, I would get up and early in the morning, jump on the train, go to the studio and do that, and ride the last train home at night. I wasn't seeing my family, and it just wasn't working. And so, I think that the biggest thing for me, to be honest, was actually finding good business partners where we're able to actually work together, and where we each had particular strengths that worked together. I keep saying together. I think that's a big thing. You can figure out a way to make things work on your own. But, with a family, I have 2 children, there was a lot of pressure for me to just bring in as much money as possible. And I actually learned a lot during that period. I'm very thankful for my wife supporting me, especially when I was like, hey, baby, I'm going to start this company, GMB. It's going to be great. Yeah. So, man. Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of people.
Success. Sorry, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
No, there's just now, if you say you're a fitness coach, or because of Instagram and everything, it's just much more of a normal thing.
It's so different. It just wasn't a thing back then, it was, exactly. So.
Okay. And then at what point were you like, oh, Jesus, this is really taking off? Like, when were you like, this is crazy? Like, I don't think you would have imagined, like, if I talked to you 10 or 11 years ago and we're like, this is where GMB is now, you've got like, I don't know how many thousand people that you've helped, and then how is it over 100 trainers now?
Yes, they're closer to 200 now, trainers, which is pretty big. Yeah, man. It's weird. I'll just say that. I really don't know how to describe it.
How many clients have you? How many clients of GMB have had at this point?
I am pulling up the website right now because we have it written on there and it changes. So, I think we've got it written on here somewhere. 58,828 clients in 102 countries. That's as of today.
You would have had to do a lot of in-person hours to get to that.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes.
In
So that's
Osaka.
So that's since 2010. So yeah.
Crazy.
So yeah, man, it's pretty wild. So in the beginning, I remember when we did our first launch, very first launch. Jarlo, I think Jarlo was in Seattle at that time. I think he had moved back to Seattle from Hawaii. Andy is in Osaka, and I was having a barbecue at my house. We were having a party. I don't even remember, my wife's friends and some other people were there, but Andy was there with me. And that was the day of the launch of our first product. And it was hilarious because at that time, my office was in my house and it was in a different room. And the wire, the internet connection was just crap, right? So it's just so funny looking back at all this stuff. And I remember Andy and I we launched it, and it was in the morning, which would be the evening of the day before in the United States, right? Good morning here in Japan, evening in the United States the day before. Remember, we launched it and we just went, okay, here we go. We put it out there. So I think it was an hour later or something. Andy goes in there to check it. He's like, dude, you got to come in here and look at this. And we had sold I don't even know, it was maybe just 100 or something. We're like, oh my God, this is awesome. It was just so funny. And we were freaking out. And the number just kept growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And we messaged Jarlo and we're all like, oh my God, this is crazy. But I think though, the thing is that we just kept going, and it was, let's try and make this work. Let's try and make this work. Our business contract was written on a piece of paper saying that we'll each take a third of profit, and we all signed it. I mean, that was our official contract. And it wasn't, I think, until 5 years in that we actually wrote up a proper business contract for a second. Yeah. But, I don't even remember what we were talking about, but it's just crazy to think back at those times. I would never have thought it would be like this. And it can be quite overwhelming. Just had some pretty fun experiences as well. I remember being in Europe, and I was boarding an airplane, and I was with Chris, Chris, right? So he was helping me teach. I was boarding a plane in Europe, and the flight attendant was like, Ryan Hurst? And I was like, maybe, depends, She's like, oh my God, I love GMB and blah, blah. And she stopped everybody and took a selfie with me.
That's
and
so
she ended
funny.
up bringing me, business class food. I don't know. It was just funny. And we've been in restaurants in Seattle where people would come up to Andy, Jarlo, and they're like, you guys are GMB. And I said, well, I mean, it's weird. It's still my kids are when we'll travel and somebody will come up to me and be like, hey, Ryan from GMB. And I'll be like, hey, what's up? And they're like, Dad, is that your friend? And I'm like, yeah, kind of, because they didn't quite understand what's going on. And, to my kids and my wife, I'm still, the old man, if you will. So, nothing's changed. And I think that's the other thing too, is I really don't think we've changed, to be honest. I mean, we're still, what you see is what you get. And, as I get older too, I'm just kind of just thankful that I'm still able to continue to do this. So yeah.
Going on to that point
Anyway.
as well, because it is, you know, the way it has blown up exponentially, which is amazing. Do you feel any pressure ever to kind of
Every single day?
with, you know, because you're leading a lot of people with content online, and then obviously the clients and then the trainers. So
Yeah.
how do you
Yeah.
manage that?
A few years back, I wouldn't say I lost my shit, but yeah, I really felt the pressure where I can't do this anymore, to be perfectly honest. I was just, you know, Andy and Jarlo have felt this as well, I'm sure, you know. But yeah, a few years ago, really, I just can't do this anymore. You know, this is too much. And I think what's changed now for me is that I understand that I don't need to do it myself, if that makes sense. You know.
You mean you get like, you don't control everything, you just focus on your part?
I focus on what I can control. And so we've got just such a great staff, you know, full-time. We've got full-time, you know, our employees in GMB. And that's the other thing too. It's absolutely bonkers to think that we've got, you know, I won't say the exact number, but, you know, close to 20 full-time employees in the company, you know, and it's thanks to them, you know, and them doing the work and helping us that allows us to continue. I would not be able to continue if I were doing things still the same way I was trying to do a few years ago. A big part of that is letting go and not trying to control everything. I think that's the other thing too. So, you know, I really, to be honest, don't answer a whole lot of comments recently. And that can be overwhelming. I appreciate everyone who uses GMB, but the other things is I've tried to also separate myself a bit, if you will, between work and personal. And you know, people hit me up almost every day with a private message on Instagram. Hey man, I just got this real quick question I want to ask you about GMB. And while I appreciate that a lot, that's my personal account. And so this is what's tough, is I'm not trying to say I'm trying to separate myself from personal business, because to be honest, it's pretty much the same. But in the sense that I'm really just trying to focus on, listen, okay, I'm going to focus on the programming side of things here. I'm going to focus on just trying to be as best as I can for the things that I know that I can do. And for the things that I can't do, not stress over them and actually not even try and think about them. And that took some serious time for me to get there. You know, GMB as my company, you know, it's part of my that's my company. Like, you know, even things happening within the company, me going, okay, I'm not going to look at that. I'm not going to, you know, deal with that. And that balance, if you will. So yeah, kind of going deep, and I'm trying not to like say too much, to be honest, because it's, you know, one of those things, and I don't want to give people the impression that of whatever it might be, but yes, I'm just trying to focus on the things that I can control and do really well with. And so when I can do that, then it allows me to be the person I need to be for the people that I need to be for, the trainers, the clients, my staff, my family.
I think that is a really, if you don't like, obviously if you don't want to go into detail with stuff, but something I think would be interesting, again, this is a very selfish question, but with online coaching, like boundaries disappear, especially with social media. And then obviously if you're replying to everyone and it's like so much volume, I'm guessing, because of your reach, of course you want to help people, but then if you're spent or you've nothing left over for your family, for trainers, for your actual, you know, the important things, like how do you set those boundaries? And obviously they've probably changed every year. They're changing
quite a
with
bit,
technology
quite a
and with
bit.
the company growth and everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I totally talk about it. To come back to, for example, if someone hits me up on my personal accounts, and if it's GMB related, I just say, hey, you know, hey, really love to hear from you. I kind of have a reply that always sends us, hey, really appreciate you reaching out to me. So this is my personal account and I don't answer GMB questions here. Please send a message to info@gmb.com and we'll handle it there, or we'll answer it there. And the thing is I've never had someone to be like, dude, just answer my question. You know, they've always been like, oh, totally cool, man. Yeah, I'll hit you up there.
Yeah.
And, you know, the thing is you're always going to get a reply. You're going to probably get a better reply because it's during business hours, if you will. Okay. And they're there to help you answer your question in depth. Whereas if it's my personal thing and I've got 20 quick questions, there is no such thing as a quick question, because I'm going to try and give you the best answer I can do. And I'm not able to do that if it's on my personal account, because I set my day up into blocks of time. And I have time, I set up my time based on what I need to do. So you're better off sending, you know, that's why I have this kind of stock reply real quick that I do, because I know that I'm not going to sit there and take the time to answer like it should be answered immediately. But if you send that message to info@gmb.io, then it's going to be answered very quickly and very, very thoroughly. And so it's actually would behoove you to contact and not contact me directly, if that makes sense. And so this is where boundaries are very important. Also, you know, if you do have clients, then it's the way that you set things up as well from the beginning, and having these conversations. And that, for example, if you I don't even know, if you've got a particular app that you use in order to train your clients, then stick with that app. You know, don't say, hey, here's my WhatsApp address and my Instagram address and my email address. You know, it's, if you're using a single app, do that. And then I check in once a day for Instagram, where I might post, or some days I don't even check in, to be honest, recently, but where I'll post something to my personal account and then check messages, and that's it. But that's once, you know, I have a certain time that I'll do that. I'm not on Instagram all day long.
Yeah. And
so what I do is I have my priorities for the day and I focus on those. So boundaries really is simply communicating up front to let people know how you're going to communicate.
Yeah.
I think that's extremely important, where it's not just like, hey, hit me up if you have a question. No, it's letting them know this is how I communicate and this is how I teach. And if people know that, then there are not going to be problems down the line.
Yeah.
Or hopefully there won't be problems down the line, I should say. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, like there's so many different ways to contact a person now that,
man, it's crazy, right?
It's not coming from a bad place. It's just, if you're used to just messaging people on Instagram, then why wouldn't you message someone you want to have a question about? But of course, if you just make it clear, you know, how you respond, how you do stuff, the person is like, it's not going to be a problem. Switching gears a bit now, I'd like to talk a bit more about your training. And I think it would be interesting, you know, especially with Instagram and what you see, and like if people watch your videos and they see how well you move, they see all the skills that you do, but like this is something you built up over kind of like 6 to 12 months.
Since I was 6 years old. Yes, basically. Yes.
Yeah. So do you want to maybe talk about like, I'd love to actually know more about, because you're, you know, really like gymnastics. So
yes.
And then going into martial arts, and that was part of why you moved to Japan, right?
That was the reason I moved to Japan. Exactly. Yeah, I moved here for uni. I was an exchange student in university, college, if you're listening from the United States, and came over for Kendo and Judo. And I actually moved in with my Kendo instructor and his family as an uchideshi, which is a live-in student. And I lived with him and trained. It was fabulous too, because that's really where my Japanese just took off. I spoke no English for a few years, and it was great. But yes, looking at my training, my background, as I mentioned, growing up was gymnastics. That was pretty much my life, gymnastics and Boy Scouts, outdoors, love the outdoors. And so it was, outdoors with gymnastics. And
what sort of hours a week would you have been doing during that time?
Yes. So it was pretty standard in terms of gymnastics every day. That's just how it was. If there was no gymnastics meet, so there's a season, right? So you have the season. If we were off season, then we would only have practice Saturday mornings, and I would have Sunday off. But if it was a gymnastics competition, typically they're 2 day events. So it was an overnighter. And so we would have to travel somewhere. And so Saturday was always qualifiers. And then on Sundays was the actual finals. And so the team I was with was very lucky. For one, my coach was just absolutely amazing. I had the same coach for my duration throughout, except when I was in high school, which is a different topic, because high school gymnastics was kind of a joke, to be honest. They had it, and all of my teammates from my competition team, we all went to the same high school, and we just cleaned up, for 4 years straight. And so it's the level of gymnastics in high school was a lot lower level. My gymnastics coach on my competition team would always say, "Hey guys, you get hurt during high school gymnastics, then I'm going to kill you." So, we would always pull back on our level of skills, and we would actually look at it more like as like an active recovery, mess around kind of thing during our high school competition time. Another reason why is, it was just safety factors. Well, we were tumbling on wrestling mats compared to spring floors. It's a lot of dangers. You just don't want to be throwing certain tricks. But I did that. And so my coach, it was just fabulous. I credit my gymnastics coach, my father and my martial art coaches, to whom I am today. That's who I am today. And without even really knowing it, realizing it, I'm a coach like them. And I never thought I'd ever be a coach or anything, but that's what I am. And it's thanks to them. So, coming back to my training though, when we're looking at gymnastics, it was basically Monday through Friday, every single day. And it would be a minimum of 2.5 hours. And so, but that's because there's 6 events in men's gymnastics. One day we do 3 events, and then the next day we do 3 events. And so we'd alternate those Monday through Friday. And of course, if we didn't have competition on the weekends, then Saturday would be whatever. But we would always have a warm-up, a big warm-up. We'd always work on that event. We'd be practicing on skills. And then we'd always have our conditioning, which is pretty heinous in gymnastics, if any of you have ever noticed. But but that laid the groundwork for me really being able to move well, to be perfectly honest. Worked very well when I got into martial arts, got very, very into martial arts. Started when I was in junior high. So I think I was about maybe 14. And I would go to gymnastics practice, and then right away after that, I would go to my martial arts practice. So I was doing about 2.5 hours of gymnastics, and then in the evening I would do an hour to an hour and a half with my martial art practice. And I did the martial art practice for 3 days a week and continued doing that throughout high school. Ended up, I injured my knee pretty badly, and I had to have surgery on that. And then ended up going to university in the United States. But I really, with my martial art, I stopped gymnastics when I was 18 years old. I just got burnt out, to be perfectly honest. I graduated from high school and just said, I'm done.
Mhm.
And it was just time to move on. It was all martial art from then on. And that would, I was like, hey, I want to go to Japan. My martial arts instructor, actually in the United States, he had lived in Japan for a very long time, fluent in Japanese. He was a catalyst to get me to go over to Japan. I actually enrolled in the first Japanese program they had at the university that I was in the United States. I was one of the first students, and the teacher took a liking to me, and I actually did a homestay here in Osaka, actually, with some of her friends. Anyway, it just led to me actually going to university in the northern part of Japan, a place called Niigata. Ended up just staying, loved it, and 28 years. So my training really, right? My training, though, looking at my training, though, really gymnastic based and martial art based. I competed on the police judo team here in Osaka. I'm not a police officer. The police team here, they had two teams. They had the actual police officers, and then you had the regular people. I don't know how you would really say it. My English is faltering. Ippanchimu, anyway, just like non-Japanese players, but I was on that team. I was the only foreigner. It's pretty cool. And I also had the opportunity there, once I got my black belt, to go train at Osaka Castle at the training hall within a castle, which is super cool. Boy from Kansas, rocking up, getting thrown on the mats at a castle. I mean, how samurai can you get, right?
Yeah.
So, but I had a lot of great opportunities to be able to train there. I worked actually at a martial arts complex for 8 years. That was working there and translating and also interpretations, as well as helping people with their English. And I got to participate in the martial art classes because we had a lot of visitors who didn't speak Japanese. So basically the instructors would use me as the uke, the person that they demo on, and then I would just interpret and make sure that people do that. Led me to continue with my judo, my kendo, Shorinji Kempo. I also did some Daitoryu, Aikido, Jujutsu, Aikido, some other arts, Iaido as well. But as far as training, my training was always centered around how I could get better with my martial art. So I did yoga, 500-hour yoga cert, and really went in and studied about fitness. I was involved with a fitness organization in the United States. And so everything that I was really doing was really kind of focused towards the martial arts side of things. How can I basically continue to move better in order to do my martial art? And then things shifted a little bit. How can I start helping people to get better? And so my training has always really been focused around skill work. It's never been about getting bigger. It's never been about six-pack abs sort of thing. My thinking was always, how can I move better and hopefully keep myself from getting injured for my martial art? And basically that's where everything kind of went. I continue to train that way now, but of course with my gymnastics background, a lot of the gymnastic skills can be found in there. Interestingly enough, nowadays, the past year or so, I don't really train a lot of gymnastic skills, to be honest. I used to train, one-arm handstands, front lever, back lever, a lot of rings work, whether it be muscle up, kip ups, front rolls, L sit, press hands, everything from that to, I don't even know, planche, whatever. I actually don't do those anymore. And part of the reason why is, this might surprise some people, I just don't need it anymore. And that sounds kind of weird maybe, but I'm happy. I'm really happy where I am right now. And, GMB, we've been around again 11 years. First 5, 6, 7, 8 years of that was me demoing all the stuff. I had to do all the stuff, and I did. And it wasn't until a few years ago that we actually said, hey, listen, let's get some other people doing these movements, because what we find is a lot of people will look at GM, or used to at least look at GMB and say, okay, great, Ryan can do that. There's no way I can do that.
Yeah.
So it was very important to use other people to show that, yes, this is possible. But not just that. It's not about actually getting those skills. It's about how is this going to be good for you? And so that's, again, in my life right now, is what is good for me right now. And so I just stick with the basics, to be honest. You'll still find me rolling around on the ground and doing my locomotion stuff that I built up over the years. And so for me, it's not about trying to get new skills and these fancy things. It's just really like, how do I feel like moving today? What do I need for me today? And I do that. And then what I'll do is I'll finish up with some strength work. And I only focus on 3 things for strength work. I focus on a pull, a push, and a squat. That's it. And it's super simple. Each day is different. When I'm talking about a pull, I could be doing, I don't even know, chin ups. I could be doing pull-ups. I could be doing inverted rows. I could be doing whatever. As far as push, it could be Hindu push-ups. It could be handstand push-ups. It could be something, but I just focus on a single movement that day. And, I really listen to my body. What do I need that day? How am I feeling? And then for squats, right now, to be honest, I'm actually playing around and I'm doing no squats. I'm doing isometric holds. So I'm doing, for example, kibadachi, which in English is a sumo squat hold. So basically you just get in like a big horse stance. It's called horse stance. Sorry. I lost my English there for a second. Extended period holds of horse stance one day. And then another day I'll do a wall squat, an air squat, where I'll just hold it. And like then the other day,
is it like you're
a wall sit? Is that? Yeah. I always screw up the names because there's so many different things going through my head. So yeah, I'm just using my back. I have my back on the wall. I'm in a deep squat. And I just hold it. And then the other thing is where I actually have my feet propped up on a low bench. My shoulders are on the ground. I do a shoulder bridge. Not using my hands at all, just on my shoulders. So I'm in a shoulder bridge, but I don't have my feet flat. I actually just on my toes and hold that sucker. And those are the 3 things that I'm really playing around with right now. And they're great. I'm having great success with this. And so for me right now is, again, looking at not just, do whatever I want necessarily, but what do I need in terms of how it's going to help me with my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and my Judo. And because I do that 3 days a week for about 2 to 2.5 hours each time. So, I want to continue to be able to get on the mat until I die. That's my goal. And also be able to continue to show people and hopefully be a good role model for people in GMB, to show people that I still continue to do this stuff as well, even though it might not be these fancy tricks or any of these things. It's looking at what's good for me and simply being a role model in that way, so that hopefully people can say, oh, wow, I just need to focus on what's good for me rather than chasing tricks and all this other things.
Yeah, you touched on, it's just interesting to see like the amount of, obviously you've been training since you're 6, but then just the sheer amount of hours that you've put in, I think it's important for people to understand that as well. Because sometimes someone, like a lot of the people I will work with, they might be a guy in his 30s and he hasn't done anything for 15 years. And then you can put on Instagram and you can feel bad that you're not able to do what you do, and it's like, it's decades even of that practice,
That's the thing. It is decades. And I mean, even compared to the amount that I train right now is less than half of what I used to train. But the thing is it's still probably double or triple the amount of what other people should be doing, to be honest. Like I used to train twice a day. I had my AM session and my PM session, and they were like 1.5 to 2 hours each time. So like, that's ridiculous, to be honest.
This was before you had family, was it, or were you able to?
Even when I had my family, because that was my job, right? So that's the difference. That's the difference in that, like, what is this for? I think, and really, what, to be honest, I think what I want people to take a good hard look at is do less. Do less. That's really what I'm after. And so the reason that I did all that stuff is, again, it was my job, testing programs, seeing, what needs to happen. And on top of that, making sure I can do all this stuff and continue to do this stuff. But right now, when I say that, I do my strength training, I have my locomotion and my strength training and things, listen, I'm done in like 30 minutes. That's it. And even though I do that every day, I'll do something every day. Like if I do an hour, it's probably because like similar today where I include the stuff that I needed to do for my job, which today is testing out new movements for a program that we have coming out. And so I need to make sure that I can just do that. So I spent like an hour and a half doing that stuff. That is my workout today now. Mm-hmm. So I don't say, oh, I did that, but I now need to go do push-ups or pull-ups or no, that was good enough. Mm-hmm. And so that's really what it is. And so me, even in my martial art now, is so different from before. I don't compete now at all. Zero. And actually, when I go into practice now, I don't even roll hard. I don't spar hard anymore at all. It's me wanting to get on the mat and just enjoy it. Just really enjoy making sure I don't get injured, making sure that I don't push myself so hard that the next day I'm not going to be able to do anything. It's just for the sake of pure enjoyment. And I think if more people would try and look at it that way and say, what's the minimum amount that's going to allow me to fully enjoy this, whatever it is, be happy with that. Don't think that you see something on Instagram and, oh man, I can't do that. Cool. Do you even need to be doing that? I think that's something to look at as well. Just because somebody posts something on Instagram doesn't mean that you should be doing it. Doesn't mean that it's going to make your life better. Yeah. And again, it's really what is good for you. And I think that a lot of people actually don't know that because they don't have their why. Why are you doing this? Why? If you really have that why down, like me right now, my why is super, super solid. I know exactly why I'm doing this. It allows me to control, again, what I can control. And if I see something and somebody, like, I still get messages from time to time. They're all young guys. They're like, hey man, can you do this? And they send like this movement. And I just go, nope. And they're like, well, don't you want, and they're like, don't you want to be able to do it? Yeah. And they're like, don't you want to be able to do it? I'm like, I'm good, man. Looks good. Good on you for doing that. And then, then it's interesting because people be like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool, man. Okay, cool. And so it's like, I am not competing with anyone. Mm-hmm. And not me like, I'm not going to compete with you, man. It's more like, I'm happy not competing with anyone right now. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And I'm like, that's it. I just simply, again, how can I not just like even be better, but simply continue to just do. And so I have a thing written on my board here. You don't need to be great, just consistent. Love it. And so that's what I look at, to be honest, like pretty much every day, especially when I'm thinking, oh, I got to do more, which recently is good because my personality and my character was always more. I have to be the best. I have to win. I have to do. Now it's actually pretty nice not to be that way. And I didn't even realize that pretty much like controlled my life until I really started doing some introspective work. And so anyway, kind of went deep there, but
yeah, I think it's a balance because like if you weren't like that, you wouldn't be where you're at today. You would have taken easier options and all these things. So I think it's a balance because I think you want to challenge yourself and be the best version of yourself, but then that can become a bottomless pit of like, oh,
absolutely,
I'm not here yet, so I'm going to be unhappy until I get here. Then you get here and it's like, oh no, now when I get here.
That's right.
Like, it's never ending. So I think just getting that balance is the important thing.
And it goes into business as well. It's business where I want $10 million, or like I want $1 million, or I want $10,000. Okay, great. Okay. But I mean, what's going to make you happy? And that's really tough because happiness to each person is a little bit different. But for me, it's like, like in GMB, we say, well, what is good enough for you? If you can be good enough, enough times, you're actually going to be pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And that's a tough one for people to and that's me. I'm just always like, just step on the mat, man. Just step on the mat every single day. Just
Get that
show
put on
up.
t-shirts. It's
Do
so
it.
good.
Just show up. Just show up. That's all you gotta
Yeah.
do. Just show up and start. And action is what you got to do. Yeah, that's the only way to do anything. So
Yeah, Ryan, I'm conscious of your time, so
I'm
I
good
want
to talk if you want to talk some more. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think if you have a bit more time, then like I think an interesting thing you just touched on it just now is, in my experience as a coach, and I've run into this problem myself as well, but people will set really high expectations. We won't hit the expectations, and then we'll be like, oh fuck it, like it's just I've failed and it's not worth it. And if you just did what you said and just do a little bit less but just show up every day, you'll get way better results. So like, do you see, because you've coached so many people at this point and just had so much interaction with clients, is there like a specific, like one thing that you think that is the big roadblock that people have? And if it is, like, I'd love for you to kind of go into that in more detail. I think it'd be very valuable for people listening.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest roadblock that people have is thinking that they have to do it all that day. And what do I mean by this is that, say there's a program written on the piece of paper. That program says today is your day where you're going to do these 5 movements, these many reps, these many sets, and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Great. Whatever. Okay. What I've seen, and it goes for myself as well, it's what is the very minimum you need to do that day? So let me give you an example. Let's say a person says, I'm going to do a 30-day challenge, and every day I'm going to do 50 push-ups. I'm going to say, bullshit. No, you're not. You will have good intention to do that. But first off, if you don't have a solid why you're doing that, then it's not going to continue. And I'll come back to that why in just a second. But rather than saying that you're going to do 50 push-ups every single day, what if you were to lower that bar and lower it so low to the point where it would be stupid for you not to do it that day? What do I mean by that? Instead of saying maybe you want to do 50 a day, that's fine. But let's just say, hey, do 2 push-ups every single day. Just do 2 push-ups. That sounds stupid, right? Just like, why the hell would you just do 2 push-ups? Okay. Well, if that's the minimum though, you're going to be able to find time to do literally 2 push-ups. Okay. It would be stupid not to. Oh, I don't have time to do 2 push-ups. Okay. That's the other bullshit. You might not be able to do 50 push-ups, but you sure as hell have time to do 2 push-ups. You know what's going to happen? You're not just going to do 2 push-ups. You're going to end up cranking out quite a few more push-ups. Okay. Why? Because you took action. Period. That's what it is. And so people don't need more. They need less. They need a way so that the bar is so low that it would be stupid not to do that thing. That's what we're after. And that is, don't look at, oh, I got to do all this today. No, simply look at what is the minimum amount of stuff that I just need to do to start today. And that's what I mean by step on the mat. And so, I mean, Muhammad Ali, they say, he kept his shoes in a chair right next to his bed. So that when he woke up in the morning, first thing he looked at was his running shoes. So he would go up and run or whatever. I mean, I don't know if that story is true, but like, what is that thing that you can do to set it so low that you would just actually start to do the thing? And more importantly, even if you just did the minimum amount of things, you still feel good about yourself because you know that you did those things. That is also very, very important, because what happens is if you skip a day, you'll feel bad. You skip 3 days, you forget about that thing and stop doing it altogether. And so for me, it's my morning routine. I make my morning routine so simple, just the first thing I need to do, just so that I can start it. I know if I start something, I'm going to probably finish it. And this is why in GMB, we always tell people just at least do the prep, at least do the warm up. If you can at least do the warm up, chances are you're going to finish that program that day. You're going to finish that session. And so really that's where it's at. Many, many years that this is always something that I've had to tell myself, just every single day, step on the mat. That is what has kept me going over the years. That's it. This step on the mat. And I mentioned earlier about going to a castle and being able to train. It scared me to death. I would ride the train I would be at the castle, and the castle's huge. We're talking, this thing is enormous. And I would be outside of the castle and try and talk myself out of not going. Oh, I got a little something in my stomach that maybe I shouldn't do it today. And I'm kind of sore and I'm kind of tired, and but I said, okay, listen, just step on the mat. Thing is I don't think I've ever had a bad practice once I stepped on the mat. I've tried to talk myself out of it hundreds of times, but pretty much every single practice afterwards, I felt so good that I went. And I think really that's what it is. It's how can you make it so easy for you to actually just take action and step on the mat? We all have our ways of doing this, and you have to find a way that's easy for you. But again, I think it comes down to how simple can you make it for you to actually take action. Coming back to the why, though, I think a why is really where it's at. The why, I want to be very clear, it's your why is not just six-pack abs. If a person comes and then, I want to have six-pack abs. No, you don't. You want the feeling of what you think you're going to have once you acquire six-pack abs. What is that feeling you're after? What is that mental state that you really want to be in? That's what you need to pursue. And this is deep. This is like really peeling back the layers of the onion. And it's difficult for people to really look at that. But the deeper and the more solid, if you will, why you have, the easier it's going to be to actually start to take action. And this is tough, because as a coach, I think that's really what you're after. I can get anybody six-pack abs. I can.
Is there going to be a GMB program coming out in 2020?
You betcha, baby. GMB abs, baby. We're going to call it 2-minute abs, though, because, six is too long. So,
that's true.
But it's not that. It's again, it's what do you want out of that? You know what I mean? And so we can start working more towards that. Then the thing is the body will happen. But if you just try to create the body, it's going to be tough. If you can focus on doing things, again, in a safe manner that are enjoyable, so you can be consistent and learn, things happen. And that why is going to allow you to do that when you actually set the bar low. A lot of people listen to this, why would you not want to be the best? I'm not saying that, okay? It's not even that. But like I said earlier, though, good is good enough. And if you can be good enough times, you're going to end up being really freaking good. But the thing is you've got to be consistent. And consistency means taking action every single day. That's it. So how can you set yourself up for success to be able to take action every single day. It's like the guy who says he wants the black belt. Cool. The only way you're going to get it is if you practice. Thing is how long is it going to take? As long as it takes. All you got to do is just keep practicing. I remember my coach, Mark, my gymnastics coach. We never counted how many times we practiced a skill. We would just get up there and keep doing it until we got it. We might get in a day, it might be a week, it might be a month, it might freaking take 3 months. But the thing is it's just like, keep doing it. Just keep doing it until you get it. We never were like, how long is this? I don't think I've ever asked my coach. I mean, he would have smacked me and be like, you talking crazy, boy. And it's the same like with martial art. Hey, tell your instructor, how long is it going to take me to get my black belt? Well, first off, they're going to smack you again because like you're obviously not practicing if you're thinking that way, but it happens. So the black belt is like six-pack abs. The body happens through practice. And that's really just where it is. The only way that you practice is if you step on the mat. The only way you step on the mat is if you make it easy enough to make sure that you can do that on a consistent basis every day. So that's the thing. And how can we help people in GMB step on the mat? Mm-hmm. That's it. That is really it. Then once they step on the mat and do it, how can we help a person to continue to work through the program? So that's why throughout the program, we have certain things at the 5th session where I might pop in and do a video like, hey, listen, great. You're coming this, doing great this far. Let's start thinking about it in this way and make sure that blah, 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 or whatever. So making sure that I'm kind of holding their hand and letting them know that everything's okay. You're on the right track.
Yeah.
That's what a coach does. And it's tough. It's really tough, not just for the coach, but also the person going through, because that's where empathy comes from. And you can't really take a person through unless you can see that through experiences that you've had where you struggled with that.
Yeah.
Just like I'm not going to be able to be honest, if a person is extremely overweight, I am not the person to come to who's going to be able to help them to lose a lot of weight. And the reason why is because I've never really been, morbidly obese. And so I feel for that person, but the thing is I would rather have a person who's gone through a similar experience so that they know what I'm going through. And this is how I actually choose my coaches who coach me, is I choose people who have had similar experiences to me. I'm not going to choose a 22-year-old guy for life coaching. I'm 49 years old. A 22-year-old just cannot relate to what I'm going through and what I've been through. So similarly, that's what we're trying to say. And so that's why I want to try and help the people that not only I can relate to, but they can relate to me as well. So then we have that empathy in that way. So again, lots of different stuff I just talked about there, but it's pretty deep. And so it's not just a matter of any monkey can create a program, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
It's a matter of, is that program really focusing on the needs of that client, looking at their lifestyle and programmed in a way that's going to allow that person to be consistent in a safe manner so that they actually enjoy the process and continue to move towards their goal. Mm-hmm. That's a tough one.
Yeah, that's really that's the gold right there. That once people get their head around that, I think making it, one of my clients, she said it really well. She said it felt more manageable, and then I did an extra session because
there you go.
It just felt like I could. It wasn't going to kill me, and I could go
there you
swimming
go.
in the evening.
And that's what we want. That's what we want, right? That's what we want, man. And it's tough. Again, we can make anybody sweat. You can make anybody sweat. But just because you're crushing it and you feel like you're going to vomit doesn't mean that it's, well, for one, good for you, or it also doesn't mean that it's going to give you results. So yeah, but it's also not going to be sustainable.
Just touching on the empathy as well, because your background is gymnastics and martial arts, like my assumption is that there isn't always a lot of empathy in those arenas. So is that something that you had at, like, where your coaches had empathy, or is that something you've cultivated from your own life experiences?
I was very lucky. I've never had a coach that tried to kill me. There's a lot of coaches out there, especially in gymnastics and martial art. I've been surrounded by people who have brought me up rather than try to tear me down as their way of coaching. Mark, his way of coaching as well, he's just brilliant. He, coach of the year, gymnastics, the U.S. gymnastics coach of the year multiple times. Wow. U.S. Yeah. So we're talking like really high level. But the way that he coached was very individual, but also he would stand back to let that athlete figure things out as well. And that helped me so much. There's some people who don't learn well that way, but for me, that's how it was. That's how I learn, is where someone will like tell me something, and then I will actually go in there and work on trying, not necessarily just figure it out, but try and figure out in terms of how to work for me a little better, maybe. And, I remember that a lot of my coaches were that way. Judo as well. I remember my coach who was like, here's something that might work for you. Play around with it. And that was it, and I was the one who pushed myself in order to continue to move forward with doing that. So in terms of the empathy, like there have been times in my life when I've been coaching people where I didn't quite have that empathy and didn't understand, because the people that I was working with, they weren't, for lack of better terms, athletes. This is when I was an athlete like me. And so the programming was too heavy, if you will. And so, over time, I've learned a lot where I need to really, the empathy comes from actually trying to put myself in their shoes and saying, okay, this is me, but I don't want the way that I want to do to leak into the way that they probably should be doing it. And so that's tough because, why don't you want this? I mean, you hear this from some coaches. Why don't you want it? Well, that's them projecting their, wants onto their client. And so I think that really being able to say, okay, what is it that you really want? And me not judging them at all. And that's tough. And the other thing, this is personal one-to-one. When we're looking at what I'm doing now, is I have to look at what is the thing that's going to allow the majority of people to benefit from this, which is completely different. So the programs I create are not perfect programs at all, because they're not going to help 100% of the people that are doing our programs. And that's tough too. There is no perfect program. And so this is the other thing too, trying to create a program and setting it up in a way where a person can look at it and say, okay, it's not about me trying to copy Ryan or whoever is in this program. I need to really take a look at what's going to be good for me and make adjustments accordingly. Right. And so that's, I think, where also the empathy can come in, where I actually from the beginning say, hey, listen, this is an example of where we're going. And then try and help that person to understand that it needs to change depending on what they want out of it. And rather than saying, here's how you're going to do the planche. This is the only way to do the planche. And if you don't do it this way, you're a shitty individual. Which, to be honest, a lot of coaches out there, especially in the calisthenics world, that's what they do. And I'm kind of like, no thanks. So yeah.
Yeah, especially I think at the GMB programs, obviously they're not individualized. So you've an idea of like, okay, what's the stuff that
Avatar, if you will.
Avatar,
Right.
yeah, that I can,
Right.
that you have an idea of
it.
that person, their limitations, their weaknesses, the things that they
Exactly.
probably want to help, and then you're like, okay, what's the most condensed way I can put that into a program?
That's what it is.
Overwhelming.
And that has changed drastically over the years, and it's continuing to change. And so if you look at our YouTube videos as well, I'm talking to a specific person when I do that video. There might be people who come on, there's, you know, a 25-year-old who's jacked and looking to get better at the, you know, one arm handstand or the single arm chin up. Nope, you'll be better off going somewhere else. Just going to flat out tell you, looking at it, you know, but that's fine. We're not trying to cater to everyone. And I think that's also important, is know your audience and really speak to your audience, and trying just to like shotgun, trying to hit everyone. I don't want to do that. And this is something that we're always trying to clean up in terms of, okay, who exactly are we talking to? That will allow for better empathy. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're going to do some rapid fire questions to finish off. Is that okay?
All right.
Let's
do it.
All right. So what book have you gifted the most, or what's your favorite book?
Well, over the years, the big one has been The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. That's a huge one with me. Another book that I do, it's actually, I don't have it here with me, but it's a book written by Kano Jigoro, who is the founder of Judo, and translated into English. And that's fabulous, because a lot of people, when they look at Judo, they think it's just this martial art, but it's actually more of a way of living, and how to actually create mutual benefit for, you know, not just in your martial art, but in your business, in your relationships, in your family, and things like that. And how can we really, as a society grow together and be better together? So yeah, those two. But the main one, is Obstacle is the Way, Ryan Holiday.
For what in your life do you feel most grateful?
I would say, honestly, my wife. The reason for that is she's really helped me to view the world in a different way, and see that there's a lot more than just beyond martial art. So yeah, because I was never going to get married, I was never going to have kids. All I was going to do is just do my martial art. And she actually helped me realize that there's much more to that. And thanks to that, I really know that I've grown as a person. And yeah.
Okay. If you could wake up tomorrow having gained any one quality or ability, what would it be?
Wow. I think it would be the ability to, well, I don't know. That's really tough. I say that, but the ability to be better present in the moment, because that is something that I'm constantly trying to work on. How can I be better present in the moment with everything that I'm doing? That would be very cool.
Yeah. And two more questions. What is the greatest accomplishment of your life?
The greatest accomplishment? This is so tough. I mean, as a father, obviously, I'm going to say, you know, my kids, but I think even more so, to be honest, would be coming back to my wife. And the greatest accomplishment, I think, would be our relationship and staying together, because we don't fight, we talk, we have a very, very good relationship. And I think that that's probably my biggest accomplishment, is me always trying to make things work better in my relationship. Yeah.
Okay. Last one is, could put anything on a billboard in, somewhere like Times Square, what would it be? What message would you like to get in front of the most amount of people?
Take action now. Step on the mat. That would be it.
I love it.
Step on the mat. That would be it. Take action now. Step on the mat.
Very good.
Cool.
So I think this is a good way to end the podcast. But before we do so, Ryan, where can we send people? I know a lot of people want to get that new ad program that you're going to be launching in the new year. So where can you send people?
Yeah, man. The new ad program. No, just kidding. Yeah. So you can check us out. Just go to gmb.io. Or just go into the Google and just type in GMB Fitness. That's what we use for everything from Instagram to Twitter to Facebook, and you can find all of the goods.
Awesome. All right, Ryan, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.